So remember, I'm in modules. This is the one that'll show test number 5, but I'm going to do a little repeat for it tonight. Okay, I'm going to open up test number 5 because that's the one that's next week. Anybody want to take it this week and get it over with? I can actually make it available this week. I think I might do that and send a message. I'll still give you 2 weeks on it. Don't hold me to it yet, but it's not available until May the 8th, which is this Monday, like at midnight, Sunday, midnight. And then it closes the 14th. So test number 5. Okay, so this is test number 5. Remember, this is being recorded. I'm gonna have 2 videos because I had to restart it. I'm gonna delete that first one. So if I go to edit, now remember this is the instructor's thing. It's not exactly what you see. I'm gonna go back to preview. I'm not really editing it, I'm previewing it. Okay. I'm not gonna read all this. It's the same as the other test. I can tell you right now, first question or the second question? Let me double check. This one is 10 points. Yeah, this will be your first question, guaranteed on your test. Even though randomly selected, I set it up where this will be the first question. Now, let's go through this real quick. So you'll have this one done. It's worth 10 points, not 2. That's why there's 100. There's 96 questions on the test, not 100. This is all the terminology associated with nutrition, what people call themselves, or their eating habits. So this will be your first one. And you will choose an answer. Now, this looks like a lot of answers, but it's not that bad. You can kind of go through it and say, okay, polo-vegetarian. A vegetarian doesn't eat what? Meat. A vegan doesn't eat anything that comes from an animal. There is a difference. A vegan is more strict. What does polo mean? It's like El Polo Loco. Let's look at the answers. Okay, let's go down through here. They eat, if you can see this, they're pretty small. Let's see if somebody can figure this out. Remember, a vegetarian doesn't eat meat. Does that look like the answer? Someone not eat the flesh? Okay, let's go. I'm going to go to edit because I'm going to show you the answers. On at least the first one. So let's go to the first one. Edit. A little tricky. Okay, now remember this is being recorded. Yeah, I got it right. It took a while to do this. Polo-vegetarian, a pollotarian, someone not eat flesh of any animal that does eat seafood, exclude fish, seafood products like eggs and dairy from their diet. That'll be that. I just gave you the first one. The next one is octo-lacto-vegetarian. That means they eat these. They don't eat meat, but they eat these things. Vegetarian consumes all these things. You don't need to memorize all that. Just vegetarian doesn't eat meat. Octo-lacto, milk, dairy products. It kind of defines itself. Ovo means they don't eat meat, but they eat eggs. Lacto, ovo. They're just combining terms. But here are the answers that you choose from.
It looks like your screen is frozen again, sir.
Really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. That's what you're viewing. The screen is frozen. But
Yeah, because
yeah,
your face is frozen and I can't
in the
see.
recording, but on my end, it's recording this. So what you can do is when I post it, is go back and watch it in the recordings and just print the screen and you'll have this. It's just this one question. I've
Okay.
gone through it a couple times, even though you can't see on your screen because it's frozen. My screen's not frozen. It's actually your screen. Or is everybody else's frozen? Can anybody see?
No.
Be scrolling through this? Does anybody see this? Or is everybody's screen frozen? That's out of curiosity.
My screen isn't frozen.
It's not? No. You see me moving around?
Yes.
Whoever says my screen, it's their screen that's freezing. But not to worry, whether your screen's freezing or not, it's recorded. So you'll be able to answer it. You'll be able to go back in the recordings and look at it. And if you feel it's beneficial, print it out. Just like if somebody's screen isn't frozen, they'll have to go and print it out if they want it for the test. That's just this one question that's pinpoint, so you can get it out of the way. You know the answers, print it out, do print screen, and then the print screen again, and have it with you, and you'll be in good shape. So I'm going to take it off screen share here in a minute. I'm putting it back on screen share when we do the little quiz. Okay, so you probably now, hopefully you can just see me. I want to spend, I'm not going to keep you that long tonight, guys, but I want to spend a little bit of time, because we're getting toward the end of class. In all honesty, no matter what class you take, you're not going to remember a lot about it, any particular class. I look back in classes I took 30 years ago, and I can't even remember anything about them, much less the name of them. I look at the name and I go, I don't remember what that was about. That's just the nature of memory and things that are important, things that aren't important. So I go over and over things to engrave it in memory so that these are the things that you remember. Learning doesn't really take place by going over things one time. An instructor says, well, I went over that. Well, so what? That doesn't mean you learn it. That's not the way memory works. The more you go over something, the more neural connections you form between brain cells. It's like grass growing roots. And that represents information. If you hear it, you see it, you speak it, you read it, you write it, then it's stored in the brain. It's stored in the brain via neural connections. It's there. Memory's permanent. Memory's never lost. You never lose any memory. You lose the ability to recall memory sometimes as you get older. And diseases do this, Alzheimer's, dementia. The memory's still there. You just can't recall it. Now, that has a lot to do with understanding of anything. So repetition is extremely important. That's why in athletics you go over and over and over and over the same things to perfect it or get it as close to perfection as you can. Repetition is important, even at the college level. Kids learn how to walk, they fall, they this, they go over and over. Not to develop muscle memory, that's a myth. Coaches say that, muscles have memory, they don't. Only the brain has memory. Muscles can't remember anything, they only do what they're told. If you perform a movement in athletics incorrectly, it's not the muscle's fault, it's the brain's fault. The brain sent the wrong signal to the muscle, maybe too much force, too little force, the wrong angle, and the movement was incorrect. So you practice to try to refine that movement or that memory. Memory is memory, whether it's memory about information or whether you're trying to remember stuff or not. If you expose your brain to it, it will remember it. Now, you can reinforce it by concentrating on it and going over and over, but the neural connections there are formed. So the more you go over something, the more you remember. Just for example, your name, you could never forget your name. It's impossible unless you had, even people with dementia and Alzheimer's, right before they pass away, the last thing they would forget is their own name. When they forget their own name, they die within a few days. They start forgetting family members' names and everything else, and they're on the very end. Why is their own name the last thing that they forget? Because that's been reinforced millions of times, and there's millions of connections, roadways, pathways that trace their name. When somebody says, what's your name? You don't sit there and go, oh, let me think. What's my name? You know instantly. Why? Because there's so many pathways to the name that the neural, chemical, electrical signal that retraces that pathway and brings it into conscious thought is very easy to find because it's in there a lot. For example, if they said, what's the name of your kindergarten teacher? What was the name? You might have to think. This is what you would do. You go, You might be able to recall it. You might not. If that person was significant and it was in there a bunch of times, then you might have to think a little bit and then you could recall it. You might sit there and think and think and think, and you can't recall it, but it's still in there. You just can't find that pathway. That's why hypnosis and other things and concentration can sometimes bring out suppressed memory that you're not aware of, but it's there. Well, this is all memory and learning takes place like that. And I try to teach that way. I try to go over the main concepts over and over. So I'm going to kind of do that a little bit tonight, because some of this is on test 5. Like the terms, I'm going to summarize up a little bit. So it says you've had nutrition, and you'd be amazed at how many people, most agree, even some of the doctors, but some don't. They're just, not all of them. I don't care about a title. I've got a title too. I care about what do you know, and don't just give me an opinion. Opinions are useless. And mine's useless, yours is useless. Opinion is just something to discuss. But nutrition is not an opinion. It's a fact. There's factual information out there for those that want to accept it. When they say, oh, it's an opinion that breakfast is important. No, it's not. It's not important. That's a fact. That's not an opinion, despite what people say. So I'm going to just briefly go over, we've already talked about this once, and you kind of put this in your head. So all of nutrition, the 7 parts of nutrition, the components of nutrition, I know we've touched on this. I always start with the first 3, and they're the food groups. Remember, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. There's not 4, like I said, there's not 5. Even though you get on the government website, it says there are 5, it lists dairy as a food group. That's a joke. That's by the dairy industry. They want to promote their product and sell it like milk and eggs. It's not a food group. You can live fine without dairy. Vegans don't eat dairy products, and they're healthy. Now, you can eat dairy and be healthy too. Fats, carbohydrates, and proteins. That's the 3 things that make up food. Food contains 1 or all 3 of those. An avocado contains fat, contains protein, contains carbs. Carbs are plants, not sugars, they're plants. Plants are sugars, but a broader definition is plants. Other 2 components, vitamins and minerals. Vitamins are, it's more serious to be deficient in not in a vitamin, in a mineral than a vitamin, because we're made out of minerals. Iron, bones, calcium, phosphorus, zinc. That's real substance in our body. We're made out of those things. They're necessary. Vitamins are necessary too, but we're not made out of vitamins. So vitamins and minerals. Vitamins are just chemical compounds. You watch the video on vitamins. They're kind of overrated to a degree. You need them, but to be deficient is really rare. It's temporary. The body has storage places for all the vitamins, so you'd have to have a really weird diet to be long-term deficient. You're more likely to be deficient in a mineral, which you hear about that, like calcium and iron deficiency and things like that. So vitamins and minerals. What are the other 2 components? Water, and then phytochemicals, the thousands of chemicals in plants. That's it. That's all there is about nutrition. Phytochemicals are probably the most important because of a variety of plant food. You get different phytochemicals, lycopene, resveratrol. All these have benefits for the body. You could have a whole course just studying phytochemicals. Now, in nutrition, those 7 components, so you kind of have a basic understanding. But I don't think you need to write every single thing that vitamin A and C does in the body and say that you understand nutrition. No, you know about those vitamins, but it's better just to understand the general concept of what vitamins are. Cells take in vitamins. Some cells need more vitamin A, certain cells in the eye, reproductive cells need a lot of vitamin A. So they take it from the bloodstream and they take in the amount they need. They don't oversaturate themselves with vitamin A or D because it would be dangerous. They could actually die. So, that video on too much vitamin A. Cells will reject too much of anything, but if you bombard the body with enough of it, then you could have some problems. Cells will take it in inadvertently, but in the beginning, they kind of reject it. The body has sort of cutoff mechanisms for cells poisoning themselves by taking in too much of something. And then too much food, glucose, too much oxygen kills the cell. The cells know this. They're real smart. So what happens is that's all the nutrition revolves around those 7. But these three terms, once again, hope you remember these when you get out of this class. Whatever anybody tells you about nutrition, whatever the subject is, whatever the discussion is, you have to incorporate that in the bigger picture of these three terms. Once again, we're about 100 trillion cells. That's a huge number. It's gigantic. Cells live and die many times. We live and die once. Some nerve cells only live and die once, but most cells can make copies of themselves. When I say make copies, the cell dies, the surrounding cells make copies and they replace it. The surrounding cells are the healthy ones, the ones that are left alive. The three terms, which you know what they are apoptosis. Remember the definition, apoptosis, not apoptosis. Think of two words, apoptosis, programmed cell death. To understand nutrition, you have to understand that. All cells in the body are programmed to die in the DNA. They're called apoptotic genes. They're death genes. When they turn on, the cell kills itself. That's good, because unhealthy cells need to die. Cancer cells, disease cells, deficient cells, they need to die. And they're replaced by healthy cells. This is an ongoing process. 1 million cells per second do this, per second, 50 billion per day. Cancer cells, that's how they die. They're programmed to die. That's apoptosis. Anything that interferes with apoptosis, that slows it down, not slows it down, all the way down. We're talking within reason. Or anything that speeds it up. Most things don't speed it up. Speeding it up is okay as long as it's not too much. But anything that interferes with apoptosis is going to have some negative health effects. All cells use glucose. Normal glucose level inhibits apoptosis. Now, what does that mean? If you tell somebody that, they won't have a clue as to what you're talking about. All cells use glucose. If you keep glucose level normal by eating 3 meals a day or 5 meals a day, even if you don't overeat and you eat healthy, you are interfering with apoptosis. What that means is that these disease cells and older cells and cells that cause you to become diabetic, cancer cells, they live. And they will make nasty copies of themselves and cancerous copies. Cancer cells make cancerous copies. They spread, all kinds of bad things will happen. Now, heredity has a lot to do with this. Well, why does normal glucose level inhibit that? Because when glucose level drops, which means you haven't eaten in a while, glucose level goes down, the next term that I want to mention kicks into effect, and it's called hormesis. You can Wikipedia this, there's tons of information. Hormesis means stress that causes positive adaptation. Glucose level drops. Every cell in your body is stressed to a degree. You may be stressed. You may have a headache and not feel good, and feel like it's unhealthy. It's not. It's healthy. It doesn't feel like it, but it is. It's like on a treadmill, you're breathing hard. It doesn't feel healthy, but it is. That is stressing every cell in your body. The unhealthy cells cannot handle stress. They commit suicide. It triggers apoptosis in old cells, disease cells, and cancer cells. Dropping glucose level gets rid, to a degree, of unhealthy cells. If you constantly feed your cells unhealthy cells, they live. They live longer. They're ready to die, but you're not letting them because you're not stressing the body enough. That lack of hormesis inhibits apoptosis. You even want to throw that term in there. Lack of hormesis inhibits apoptosis. Stress makes you stronger. They'll say that doesn't make sense. I said, sure it does. How do you stress your heart? Treadmill, work, run. That gets your heart rate up, that's stress. Gets blood pressure up, that's stress. Heart's stronger. Lift weights, run, walk, stretches your bones, makes you stronger. As a kid, get sick, slows the viruses, bacteria, boosts the immune system. Stress makes you stronger. Nutrition is no exception to that. That's hormesis. Now, the third term in relation to apoptosis, which we've already talked about, is autophagy. So at a deeper level, it's pronounced autophagy, not autophagy. Like that one video, they were arguing back and forth. The guys, both of them are actually MDs. But anyway, autophagy. So I want you to think of it like this. Before the cell commits suicide, which is programmed cell death, like a person, the cell tries to repair itself. It doesn't just kill itself right away. And that's autophagy. When glucose level drops, before the apoptosis genes are kicked in, the autophagy genes are kicked in. What that does is the cell recycles its own waste. It's basically unfolded proteins, waste products built inside of the cell, cleanses itself. It repairs itself from within. It's a complex process, but things go back to the lysosome and are recycled. Toxins, poisons, even bacteria are used as food. That cell's like, I need food, I need glucose, and it's using waste products to do that. A number of other things are actually happening. It's very beneficial. And that too happens with low blood glucose. The cells will repair themselves, and nutrition and diabetes. We've talked about that. You watched some videos on that. Extremely important. And I will stand by this statement forever. I don't care if the person's an MD. I don't care what the doctor says, because I know what I'm talking about here. I've researched it. I've studied it. I don't care if they're a diabetic doctor. Any diabetic doctor that tells the patient that they need to eat breakfast because they're diabetic, that is completely wrong. Diabetes is high blood glucose, not low. That's hypoglycemia. If you're diabetic and you eat breakfast, that makes you worse. It raises glucose level. It's already high, and you're making it go higher. Now, if it's low, that's hypoglycemia. There's nothing wrong with breakfast either, but generally breakfast, lunch, dinner, that's too many calories. That's not enough. That's dropping glucose level, and that's not enough hormesis, etc. Diabetics need to spread meals out. So do people that are non-diabetic, because that drops glucose level. Glucose level drops, insulin level drops. Insulin level drops, then the insulin receptors on cells that were damaged by insulin start repairing themselves. The cell becomes insulin sensitive. Yes, it applies to both type 1 and type 2. Now, type 1, you got to be more careful with because that's inherited. That's the way they teach diabetes. That's incorrect. That's the way they teach you in med school. I taught a couple of classes in med school back in Texas, and we went into diabetes. I was teaching doctors, and they were kind of brainwashed on a lot of that stuff. I don't like the way they do it, so I didn't do it that way. The way they teach doctors is type 1 and type 2. It's ridiculous. That's like saying, if you don't understand temperature, I'm going to tell you there's two temperatures, hot and cold. And you go out and it's medium. You go, oh, he lied. There's medium. And then there's really hot and there's really cold. And you realize, oh, there's a whole continuum of temperature. Diabetes is the same way. It ranges from extremely type 1 all the way down to type 4. I don't have time to go into that. But to simplify it, diabetes means high blood glucose, not sugar, glucose. There's many types of sugars. High blood glucose, which causes a lot of problems in the body. And there's whole continuum. Nobody's really truly type 1. You die in the womb if you're truly type 1. You'd never survive. They say, oh, they were diagnosed at type 1 when they're 8 years old. They wouldn't live to be 8 if they're type 1. They had to be producing some insulin. Cells can produce a little bit of insulin. Believe it or not, the pancreas can make a little bit, not much. It's mainly made by the, not the pancreas, the liver. Not made by the liver, but it's stored in the liver. The pancreas secretes insulin a little bit. It's a main organ that secretes insulin. So, and it secretes the other hormone. There's 4 hormones, main hormones by the pancreas. The other one's glucagon. It actually raises glucose. Those two work together, glucagon and insulin, to regulate blood sugar level. So I've had people say, well, if I spread meals out, my glucose gets so low I could pass out and they have to take me by ambulance to the hospital. Never heard of me dying from hypoglycemia. Never heard of it. It's like dying from lack of oxygen. Maybe somewhere somebody did. You will pass out and then you'll survive. Unless you're driving your car and have a wreck. It's like holding your breath. You eventually start breathing again. You can't die from lack of oxygen by holding your breath. But it's not very pleasant. But anybody that does this, I would say, have some glucagon. Get your doctor to write a prescription for glucagon so that if you're fasting for a day or two, or you're diabetic and you feel like it's so low, you're dizzy, you're going to pass out, it just takes some glucagon. I mean, it raises it instantly. You can drink orange juice. It takes a little bit longer, but if you're really afraid, glucagon will raise it in a matter of seconds. So that's sort of an emergency thing in case somebody's doing that. Not eating for a day or two, they're worried about hypoglycemia. Hypoglycemia is scary. I've had it before. You feel like you're going to pass out. It feels very dangerous, but it's not as dangerous as high blood glucose. That's more dangerous. So even if you're type 1, you need to spread the meals out, eat less often. You just for hormesis and things like that. There's some evidence that type 1 diabetics, a class of them, can be cured with that sort of nutrition. What are called the islet, and it's the structure in the pancreas, the beta cells within the islet that were damaged in the womb because they were attacked by the mother and viewed as a foreign invader, that some of those cells can actually repair themselves. You have to read up on it, but there's a lot of things they can do even for type 1 diabetics. So, but this statement right here, if you're type 1 diabetic, you may have to take moderate amounts of insulin. Don't take it 3 times a day, take it once a day. They give it 3 times a day because they assume you're going to eat 3 times a day. That's too much. Maybe once a day. Maybe eat one bigger meal once a day. And you have to take less insulin. Probably 30 minutes before meals. I don't know what they say. I don't know the exact amount, but there's different types. But what happens? What caused the diabetes? Well, high blood glucose is sort of the symptoms of it. Well, what caused it? Heredity is a factor in type 1, type 2, everything. Some people can overeat, be overweight, never exercise, and they'll never get diabetes. Just heredity is like that. Some people are thin, work out, eat right, and they get diabetes. Type 2, they just get diabetes. They'll call it type 2 or adult onset. Well, the culprit behind all diabetes is insulin. Insulin is what you need to lower blood glucose. You eat, glucose goes up. That's dangerous if it stays up too long because it combines with proteins, creating glycoproteins, which makes blurry vision, damages nerves. It causes all kinds of problems. So your body's got to get the glucose level down. And so if cells don't need it, it's stored in fat cells. It's fat, you gain weight. When glucose level goes up, how do cells take it in? The pancreas secretes insulin. It's a hormone. It surrounds every cell. Once again, cells have insulin receptors. They detect insulin. That means food's available. If the cell's hungry, it takes in the food. If not, it goes to the liver, it's converted to fat. Cells don't overeat. We do, cells don't. So what happens is that insulin is like an acid. It eats away at the insulin receptors. It's not acidic, but just an analogy. And the insulin receptors, there's thousands of them, they start burning out over time. They don't function as well. And if cells start losing insulin receptors, then it didn't respond to insulin properly. And if enough cells do that, your pancreas makes more insulin to overwhelm the remaining receptors to take in glucose. At some point, you can get pancreatitis, pancreatic cancer, and at some point, you're not taking the cells, so many insulin receptors damaged. They'll do an A1C test and say you're diabetic, blah, blah, blah. They try glucophage, metformin, generic drugs. There's other drugs they try, which are good because they're not insulin. They're made from plants. They're beneficial even if you're not diabetic. I've tried them before. I can actually tell a difference. I'm not saying go do it, but yeah, I research it. Nothing harmful about them at all. But hormones are, when you mess with hormones, be real careful. Hormones have temporary benefits and long-term detriments. Every hormone is like that. Insulin, testosterone, estrogen. You take them, you have temporary benefits, but in the long run, you're worse off because it accelerates aging and cancer. All of them are like that. So you have to weigh the cost, temporary versus long-term. Temporary, you may feel better. Long-term, you don't live as long. Anabolic steroids are like that. Muscle building hormones, they all temporarily feel better, function better, cardio's better, you die younger. That's just a fact. Now, so what happens? So your A1C is high, they say, well, we're gonna have to put you on insulin. So you take insulin and the person feels better. Their A1C goes down, their vision gets a little bit better, not a lot, a little bit, and they function and they're doing okay and their glucose levels goes back to normal. They think everything's fine. And they go back to the doctor a few months later and the doctor says, well, A1C is good. So you feeling okay? Yeah, I feel better. What a real doctor would say, yeah, that's good. We got your symptoms under control, but your disease is worse. The person would say, what? Yeah, your disease is worse. Because that insulin that got your symptoms under control has further damaged more receptors. So what'll happen every 6 months, they go up on the dose, up on the dose, up on the dose. And pretty soon they can't keep you alive. You die. You lose circulation in your fingers, your feet, you can have toes, fingers amputated, you go blind, insides of arteries, all kinds of things happen. What causes that? Insulin. Insulin causes that. What are they using to treat that? Insulin. It's insane. It's absolutely insane. So if you know somebody's on insulin and you want to save their lives, you need to get them off insulin. I don't care what the doctor says. Insulin will kill them. There's no exceptions. It may take years. It may have come home very quickly. I've seen people just deteriorate like that over the years. They don't listen. And sure enough, it happens in every case. And then the doctor, oh, we can't, we just treat the symptoms. It's ridiculous. It's like using pain pills to treat pain without examining where is the pain coming from and what's causing the pain. The pain pills just mask the symptoms. Same thing with insulin. I stand by this statement. Using insulin to treat diabetes is like using alcohol to treat alcoholics. You're only treating the symptoms. Give the person a beer, a drink, the shakes go away, they feel better. You cured the symptoms, but you made the alcoholism worse. That's such with diabetes. That's people use it, and these doctors, they're only treating the symptoms, and when they jump right into insulin, because everything is their measurements or their biometrics, it's all good. And I could go into a lot of detail with a lot of studies with the best of them on that. And I know what I'm talking about when it comes to that. Now, I'm not saying if you're type 1 diabetic, you can't just go off of it, you might die. You need to be reasonable. If they keep going up on the dose, you got to do something. You got to have to examine an alternative because it's a dead end street. So work with people on that. Research it. Find out. Read the studies on it. There's a lot of doctors on YouTube that know this, and they post videos on it. But they're kind of squelched, kind of like when the coronavirus came out. Some of the doctors that knew, they were squelched. They were censored. Even though now they show, oh, look, they were right. Wow, masks didn't know good at all. Yeah, because the virus is something like 0.5 microns or something that's really small, and the holes in the mask are like 10 microns. It's too big for the virus. And there's some evidence that, I'm kind of getting off the subject, that the mask, the droplets from other people stick to your mask. And you don't notice it, but the droplets are there containing the virus. And so you have more time to breathe it in. There's some evidence that makes it worse, not better. Now, what it does do prevents you from spreading it so much. That part is true. It's 6-1, half dozen the other. I don't really care. If somebody wants to wear a mask, they can wear a hazmat suit, a space suit. It doesn't matter to me. But that's, to see kids all masked up like that, that's a lack of understanding of the immune system. Kids need to get sick within reason. You grow them up and keep them away from viruses and bacteria, damage their immune system. So wearing a mask all the time will damage your immune system, especially if you're younger, because you're not allowed to get sick. And then when you do get sick, you have a horrendous reaction because your body's not ready for it. That's hormesis. Getting sick, I'm not talking about deadly illnesses, that's a little bit different. Everybody looks at it slightly different, but that's fine on that kind of stuff. You need to look at the big picture of what's going on. So a couple things, I'm going to wrap this up in a few minutes, guys. A couple last things. So remember that about this class. Apoptosis, autophagy, and hormesis. Research it. Many Nobel Prizes have been awarded in this area. A lot of research in it, but people don't talk about it. They don't look at the big picture. The nutrition textbooks, including the one we use, I got to use something. Once again, this is facetious, but I believe it. They're all wrong. Now, they're not wrong about like what vitamin A does, and they have a chart and what vitamin C does, and analyzing some meal, writing down all this other stuff. That's true in terms of if you want to waste time and sit there and do all that stuff. That's fine. That's what registered dietitians do. By the way, that's a good degree to get. You make a lot of money, by the way. Registered dietitians, a lot of them start out 6-figure salaries. That is absolutely good. Now, you have to learn all that stuff. That's fine. But put it within the big context of what's going on. Hospitals hire them, clinics hire them, people hire them. They give you advice on diet and things like that, which is fine. You know as much as they do, not in detail, but in the big picture. Because you ask any registered dietitian, do they know what apoptosis and autophagy are? If they don't, you don't need to listen to what they say about nutrition because they don't know. The books, I'm a little bit of a repeat. I'm going to kind of prove how the books are wrong on the general picture. Every book says 3,500 calories equals a pound. That is incorrect. Even including Wikipedia says that. 3,500 calories equals 1 pound. A calorie is a unit of energy, pounds is a unit of weight. It's apples and oranges. You hear that all the time. It's ridiculous. But they say that. You eat this much, you gain this much weight. They analyze the diet. It has so much vitamin A and vitamin C. You need so much per day. You don't need any per day. You need these nutrients, those 7 things I listed, over time. You don't have to have vitamin A every day. If you don't have it for 6 months, you won't even go blind. It takes a couple of years. You don't have to have it every day. You need a certain amount over time. Food is the same way. You don't have to have it every day. You need a certain amount of calories over time. The more time you have between meals, the healthier you'll be because of the things we talked about. But you do need these nutrients over time, not daily. And over time means really over time. So going back to 3,500 calories, I would tell somebody, if you eat that 3,500 calories, which is a huge meal, it's like 2 meals, you're gonna gain a pound because that's what it says. But I'm gonna eat it and I will not gain any weight at all. They'll say, why are you special? I'll say, because I understand nutrition. Because I didn't eat yesterday, and say it's the next day, and it's in the evening, haven't eaten all day. Almost 48 hours. My glucose level's slightly low, it's not dangerously low. I'm pretty hungry. Say that person ate lunch and their glucose level's normal. We eat the same meal. Now, initially, the meal has the same amount of weight. So temporarily, yeah, you do gain just temporarily. But what happens to their food? It goes to the stomach, it's converted, the vitamins are taken out, it's basically converted to glucose and fats and things like that. Put it in the bloodstream. Glucose circulates around. Cells go, whoa, I don't want any. You just ate a while back. Cells are full. They're rejected. The glucose goes to the liver, changed to fat. It's changed to basically triglyceride and put in fat cells. So every fat cell gets a little bit bigger everywhere. Skin, face, nose, back. No such thing as spot weight reduction. You can't lose weight in this one area. If you do sit-ups till you're blue in the face, you don't lose any weight around the stomach more than anywhere else. Your stomach muscles get stronger, but fat cells are like batteries. If you're needing glucose, you don't have the glucose in your liver, then the fat cells release fat, which is changed to glucose, but they release it the same rate. I don't care what exercise you're doing, but everywhere under the skin is released at the same rate. Now, if you're exercising like sit-ups, you lose them around the stomach, because there's skin there, but you're losing them in other parts that aren't moving. Your stomach muscles are getting stronger. But that's the nature of weight gain versus weight loss. So it's just an understanding of, what's going on with the body as far as losing weight and gaining weight. 3,500 calories. So they're going to gain about a pound because it's going to be put in fat cells. They're getting about a pound of fat weight, about 1 pound. Why will I not gain any weight? Because my glucose is low, not hypoglycemic, low. So it's converted, the food is converted, put in the bloodstream, glucose, cells take it in. All my cells take it in. Fat cells get nothing. They get nothing. So I don't gain any weight. Regular weight is not stored in cells, it's stored in fat cells. So by the next day, they gained a pound, mine's still normal, yet we ate the same meal. So to analyze a meal and say it's going to affect everybody the same is incorrect. It depends on when you ate last. This is also true with the vitamins, like vitamin A, vitamin D, vitamin C. How's it going to interact in you versus how it interacts in me? I don't know. Is your vitamin C level low, your vitamin D level low? Do cells need it? Then it has more of an effect for you than for me. And there's so many factors that go into play there. So you can't really analyze anything about the food without analyzing the person first. You got to know what their levels are when they ate last, glucose level, what their vitamin A level is really complex. It makes no sense to do that. When they registered dietitians bring around a chart and say, I'm going to analyze your diet based upon one day. This is ridiculous. What if you didn't eat that day and just hand them a blank piece of paper? It's like, oh, that's horrible. No, it's beneficial because the next day you're going to have more. So that's another myth. Now, this one really gets people riled up, but it's absolutely true. Within bounds, there's no such thing as a good food or a bad food. It doesn't make sense. Food does not have a personality. People can be good and bad and have mood swings and do good and bad things, but not food. Food is food. And I've gone on this before, so I'm going to spend a lot of time on it and wrap up here. But if you say, well, give me an example of a good food, they always fall for this. A good food is an apple. Okay, here's the question you asked me. Does an apple have fat? They'll say, no. Remember, it's carbohydrates, plants. Remember, there's 3 food groups. Carbohydrates, fats, it doesn't have any fat. Protein, it actually has a little bit of protein, not much. Protein is contained in plants too, like an avocado. An apple has a little bit, not much, but it's mainly carbohydrates. Now, so if it has no fat, ask them, can you gain fat weight by eating an apple? And they're going to say, almost everybody says no. I've had doctors say no. I say, sure you can. Because if you eat a couple apples and your glucose levels are normal, that is converted to glucose. It raises glucose level, not a lot, but a little. Circulates around, cells reject it, it goes to the liver, it is converted to fat. and put in fat cells. You gain fat weight from an apple, which has no fat. And that raises blood pressure and heart rate, not much, but technically unhealthy to a degree, not much. But so if it causes you to gain weight and raises heart rate and blood pressure and stresses the body a little bit, not a good stress, a bad stress. That's called, there's hormesis is stress, but eustress is good stress. Distress is bad stress. Like video games are distress. Exercise is eustress. But anyway, so you ate that apple and did all those bad things. So here's my question. Is an apple a bad food? You have to say yes. No. It's bad because the condition you ate it in made it bad. Just like a cheeseburger. Is it bad? Oh yeah, it's bad. No. If your glucose level is low and it doesn't cause fat weight and you don't eat just cheeseburgers all the time, you have a variety of diet, it's not bad for you. It's not, no food is good or bad. It depends upon you. You can't rate food like that. I know people that eat, quote, unhealthy, but they spread the meals out and they do other things and they're very healthy. And they'll eat, quote, what people call unhealthy food. I know vegans and vegetarians that think they're healthy just because they practice that lifestyle, but they don't spread the meals out. They eat 5, 6 little meals. They don't have enough hormesis. Maybe they overeat. They're not as healthy as they could be. And they say, well, I'm eating all this healthy food. It doesn't matter. You're not doing the other things, which are more important than the food. See, that's what people totally lose track of. They just get hung up on these little things. Look at the big picture of what's going on. Okay, guys, any questions? I'm going to show you the little quiz. We could go into all kinds of detail on this, but don't take my word for it. Watch some YouTube videos, read up on it. I'm not big into trivia, like when somebody say I can write down all the vitamins too, like A, B, C. There's a ton of them. I have a document on that. It's really complex. Like some of the vitamins some things should be listed as vitamins, and they're actually not. This is because of the way they label them and stuff. But the B vitamins are like that. Just quickly on this. The B vitamins are totally screwed up in the way they're labeled. It's ridiculous. When they were discovering vitamins, they found B and they found C, and they're both water soluble. And then they kept looking. They said, "Oh, we found some very similar to B, and they're not C." And they go, "Oh, no letters between B and C." So what did they do? Numbers. So B1, B2, they went all the way up to like B20 something. Believe it or not, yeah, B18 was one, B16. Then they started looking at them further and they go, oh, this is not really a vitamin. It's more like it's an enzyme or a coenzyme or it's some molecule that has a mild function or maybe no function. They're not sure. So they start taking them out. This is why you end up this weird labeling. B1, 2, 3, like thiamine is B1, riboflavin B2, niacin is B3. They used to be B4. They took it out. Now there's B5 and there's a B6. I think pyridoxine is B6. Pantothenic acid is B5. Pantothenic acid is B5, and then you go all the way to B6, and then B9, which is folic acid or folate, and B12, which is cobalamin. B12 is the energy vitamin. That's the one in energy drinks. That actually works, by the way, because the B vitamins are water soluble. So they go in a cell without the cell's necessary permission. And the B vitamins are known as energy releasing vitamins. That's why they kind of give you a little boost. They're not dangerous. You could get addicted to them, but they're not dangerous. B12 is in that category. I think B5 is in that category. Maybe B7. Those little energy things, read on them. They'll say B12 and a couple other B vitamins. They probably have a little caffeine, give you a little boost. Maybe a little sugar, unless it's calorie free, because sugar gives you a boost. You got to be real careful about those, though, because you can get addicted to those. Every time you feel tired, you start taking them. My brother's a dermatologist. He said he got addicted to them. He couldn't get through the afternoon without a couple of those energy drinks. So you got to be careful. It doesn't mean it's dangerous, but interesting on B5 called pantothenic acid. Those shampoos have caught onto that. It says fortified with vitamin B5 because B5 is in hair. They know that. It helps with hair growth. They won't put pantothenic acid because it sounds like they're putting acid in the shampoo. They'll just say B5. And it sounds good, so people buy it. It's a marketing thing, B5. In fact, there's a whole shampoo industry based upon that. It's called Pantene, pantothenic acid. Pantene is the shampoo that got its name from pantothenic acid because that's the one involved with hair growth. Okay, guys, so I'm going to do a little screen share. Let's get your points. doesn't matter which class I go to. Let's look at the little quiz tonight. You know, that 3-question quiz. All right. I don't know what the numbers are. Oh, let's see here. Where is it? Oh, here we go. Hey, this is an interesting one. Oh, that was last week. That one is, this is one of the most, I have a lot of respect for this country. I've been there a couple of times. You want to talk about healthy. The lifestyle is just, it's so different there. It's incredible. Some people, Americans, a lot of them couldn't make it there. Some could, some couldn't. It's really amazing how friendly the people were. I was really shocked. I mean, everywhere you go, it's incredible. So this one, I still like the freedom of the United States, though, so don't get me wrong. I would love their lifestyle, but I don't want to give up the freedom. Okay, guys, make a note of this. Get a little piece of paper, write it down. Code number 1 is this one, 656. Code number 2 is 212. Code number 3 is 113. Everybody got that written down? Somebody say yes. Say yes or no.
Yes.
Yes? Okay,
Yes.
so you go back, and I'm going to end this meeting. So you go back to the modules, and take your little quiz right here. Click that. It only gives you like 2 minutes to take it, but it shouldn't much longer than that. Then I'm going to go to grades, and if I see your grade pop up as 100%, I'm going to give you 5 points extra, which is like 1/3 extra, 5 out of 15. I'll change it to 133, but only for people tonight, because people taking it tomorrow, they can't say, "Oh, I was there." I say, "Well, you got to take it now." So take this little quiz. I'm going to post the video. Any problems come up, message me.
Can you repeat the codes again, please?
Already closed it out. Hey, somebody has them. Tell me what they were again. What's number 1? What was code number 1? Somebody? Anybody? Let me open it up.
656, 212,
Okay.
and 113.
Okay, did you get that? Everybody get that? 656, 212, and 113, is that right?
Yes.
Okay. So we're good to go, guys. Have
Thank
a good
you.
evening. Have a great evening. And I'll talk to you later.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.